Good evening. Welcome to Cancer Research Malaysia's third virtual lab tour in collaboration with Persatuan Siswazah Wanita Malaysia, or PSWM. My name is Gurpreet and I'm your host, and we are going to get things kicked off here in just a moment. Feel free to go grab a drink, get comfortable, and we'll get started shortly after this countdown video.
CRM yang ditubuhkan pada tahun 2001 merupakan organisasi penyelidikan kanser utama di Malaysia. Selain untuk jadi institusi yang mencari penawar kepada kanser yang sering dialami penduduk negara ini, CRM juga menetapkan sasaran untuk pastikan Asia tidak ketinggalan dalam penyelidikan kanser.
And even though Asians make up half of the world's population, we only make up about 10 to 15% of the research studies. So that's the reason why Cancer Research Malaysia exists. We need to put Malaysia and Asia on the map for cancer research so that all of the advances that are possible for cancer research can also include Asians, to make sure that Asians are just not left behind.
CRM kini mempunyai 50 kaki tangan terdiri daripada saintis, doktor dan kaunselor. Selain penyelidikan, CRM juga terlibat dengan beberapa program dan kempen kesedaran bersama komuniti seperti Bold and Beautiful 3.0 yang dianjurkan bersama Hind Foundation. Selain itu, mereka juga bekerjasama bersama Hospital Tengku Ampuan Rahimah untuk melaksanakan program Patient Navigation. Hospital berkenaan berperanan sebagai pusat sehenti dalam usaha meningkatkan kadar survival penyakit kanser payudara.
Using charitable funding, we set up a one-stop center that we call a Patient Navigation Center. So this brings together the doctors, the nurses, the survivors, the community workers all in one center, so that whatever barriers that the patient face, we get rid of that. So if they don't have money to come for bus fares and treatment and so on, we pay for that. If they don't understand the treatment, we provide all of that. And by doing that, we've been able to improve treatment adherence and hopefully improve the survival of breast cancer patients.
CRM kini sedang bekerjasama dengan Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia untuk memperluaskan lagi program sama ke lebih banyak hospital. CRM berharap usaha mereka untuk mencari penawar kanser akan terus dapat sokongan orang ramai.
In the last 5 years, more than 100,000 Malaysians have contracted cancer. It is now the fourth most common cause of death in Malaysia. In order to improve our survival rate, we need to better understand the factors that cause cancer and find ways to curb and control it. Research is key.
For some cancers, they're just much more common in the Asian population. Our lifestyle factors, our diet, our reproductive factors are all different. And because of our immune profile is different, it might also mean that our response to treatment is different. So unless we study these comprehensively, we don't know whether the treatments that we use are necessarily the best possible ones that we can use for Asian patients.
Through research work, we can better understand the factors behind the rise of the disease. At the same time, we find ways to improve it, and whilst increasing the survival rate.
We will be able to perform much better analysis and also have access to better infrastructure, which would speed up our research. At CRM, we have the largest collection of breast cancer genome in Asia.
Fundamental building blocks to help us understand what goes wrong in these cancers and how do we cure these cancers more effectively. We now have 23 hospitals that are able to provide genetic counseling and genetic testing services. There's so much that we have already done, but there's so much more that we can do.
With better research, advances in treatment, growing awareness, and early detection, we can reverse cancer.
Hi there, good evening everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you. We have close to about 40 participants joining us here today from various locations, and we are super excited to have all of you with us here this evening. You know, a number of years ago, I learned that saying yes to something means saying no to something else. Time is precious for all of us, and I'm sure there's many other things that you could have been doing with your time this evening, from spending time with your family to working or taking on other important commitments. So we would just like to take this time and this opportunity to once again say thank you for choosing to be here with us for Cancer Research Malaysia's third virtual lab tour. My name is Gurpreet, and I'm the engagement manager here at Cancer Research Malaysia, a non-profit organization saving Asian lives through impactful research, and I will be your host this evening. Tonight, we have the privilege of hosting this virtual lab tour in collaboration with Persatuan Siswazah Wanita Malaysia, or PSWM, who has appointed one of our scientists and speaker here today, Professor Chung, as the fourth Dr. Siti Hasmah Mohd Ali Professorial Chair holder. Here at Cancer Research Malaysia, the work that we do is fully funded by donations and research grants, and this recognition that we've received from PSWM means a lot to us because it enables us then to carry out our mission to do impactful research towards a future that is free of the fear of cancer. We also have with us today Datin Fauzia Ramli, Yang Dipertua of Persatuan Siswazah Wanita Malaysia, who will be sharing more about what PSWM does and the significance of the Dr. Siti Hasmah Mohd Ali Professorial Chair. Before we kick things off tonight, allow me just to share some details of what this evening is going to look like, just so all of us are informed and are on the same page. We will start with some welcoming remarks by Datin Fauzia Ramli, followed by a short presentation by Professor Cheong. We will also be meeting and hearing from three leading scientists from Cancer Research Malaysia, all of whom will highlight some of the work that they're doing and some of the discoveries that they've found in our fight to reverse cancer right here in Malaysia. That's right, it's not in the US or not in the UK and not in Europe, not even Australia, but right here in Malaysia. You see, we believe every life is precious. And as long as research continues here in Malaysia, there's a way forward for Asians, especially Malaysians. As long as research continues, there is hope, and we can win this battle against cancer. Just an additional note, as you experience the lab tour tonight, you will be able to field your questions at any point throughout the evening. We will be having a question and answer session with the speaker and the panelist towards the end of our time together today, where your questions will be addressed by the panel of experts. Feel free to insert your question by clicking on the Q&A box. You can find this box on the bottom of your screen. And if you like to actually remain anonymous, you can click on the anonymous box itself, and the questions that you ask, we won't be able to trace back to whoever said it. You will also have an option to upvote the questions that you would like answered by clicking on the thumbs up or the like button. What happens there is those questions will then become a priority for us to answer during our Q&A session a little later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like now to invite Datin Fauzia Ramli, Yang Dipertua of Persatuan Siswazah Wanita Malaysia, to say a few opening words. Datin Fauzia, dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Gurpreet, for the kind introduction. Persatuan Siswazah Wanita Malaysia, or the Malaysian Women Graduate Association, was established in 1979 by a group of women who believe that women graduates have the responsibility to use their skills and knowledge to their country and to make an impact on society. In 1996, this association established a chair called Kursi Dr. Siti Hasmah Mohd Ali, or the Dr. Siti Hasmah Mohd Ali Professional Chair at the University of Malaya, to acknowledge the contribution and celebrate the success of Malaysian scientists in the field of research and education, particularly in the field of emerging sciences and technology. Professor Dr. Cheong Sok Ching is the current holder of the Kursi Dr. Siti Hasmah Mohd Ali. As part of the activity under the Kursi Dr. Siti Hasmah Mohd Ali, we are honored to be collaborating with Cancer Research Malaysia on this third virtual lab tour. Cancer Research Malaysia is supported entirely by donations and research grants, and therefore, I would like to appeal to all our friends and our friends' friends to support the cutting-edge work that is being done right here in Malaysia by donating to Cancer Research Malaysia. Cancer has touched each and every one of our lives, and I feel strongly that we should contribute to the efforts of these outstanding Malaysian scientists. I hope this virtual lab tour would give you a sneak peek into what goes on in research that can impact the lives of cancer patients. Enjoy the tour, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Datin Fauzia, for the introduction and the warm welcome. I would like now to invite our next speaker, Professor Dr. Cheong Sok Ching. Professor Chung is the 4th Dr. Siti Hasmah Muhammad Ali Professorial Chairholder and has been working with Cancer Research Malaysia for the last 19 years. She's a fellow of the Academy of Scientists Malaysia and the International Academy of Oral Oncology. Tonight, Professor Dr. Chung will be speaking about understanding the cancers that are common in our region and some of the success stories resulting from the research that has been done here in Malaysia. Here is Professor Chung.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and Selamat Sejahtera, and thank you for joining us here in Cancer Research Malaysia this evening, and Selamat Datang. In the pre-COVID era, Cancer Research Malaysia often hosts visits to our lab. Even though this is something out of the ordinary for the life of a scientist, our scientists believe that what we do impacts not only the individuals in the academic setting, but also the public. Today, we are honored and pleased to partner with PSWM to bring you this visit to Cancer Research Malaysia. Each and every one of us have been touched by cancer, whether directly or indirectly. So it comes to no surprise that cancer in the last year affected more than 19 million individuals worldwide. And about half of this will affect Asians where we are. The good news is more and more people are surviving cancer. In the 1970s, 1 in 4 individuals survived cancer. And in 2010, this has doubled to 2 in 4. And at the pace we are going, we are hopeful that 3 in 4 cancer patients will survive cancer 10 years. For most cancers, such as skin cancer and even breast cancer, survival is indeed improving. So these graphs shows survival in the 1970s compared to currently in the 2000s. You can see that several types of cancers are beginning to see improvements in cancer survival. For example, a type of skin cancer called melanoma, and even breast cancer, which is a very common disease worldwide. However, this kind of improvement in the survival of cancer patients has not been equal, and I will come back to this later in my talk. Traditionally, we tend to group cancers according to the organs where the cancer originated. For example, lung cancer, colorectal cancer, ovarian cancer, and the rest of the cancers are usually grouped based on where they originate in the body. So, for example, for one type of cancer, we tend to treat all patients with the same drug. However, we now know that such approach may not necessarily be very effective, whereby the same type of cancers being treated with the same drug, some patients may respond, some patients may not respond, and other patients may even suffer the side effects. As we begin to understand cancer and notice that the same kinds of cancers do not respond similarly, we know that we now need to look at cancers in a different light, not only through this anatomical side, nor through only the microscope. We have to delve deeper to understand the molecular underlyings of cancer development. As we begin to understand and study cancers more deeply, we know that cancers, even coming from the same organ, are not created equally, whereby they may have different genetic underlyings of the disease. As we begin to understand these genetic changes, we can now group cancers based on the genes that have been altered within the cancer. And we can now begin to group these cancers according to the genetic alterations. Even though the cancers may originate from different sites of the body, if their genetic makeup are the same, they can be grouped, for example, put in a same group in order to be treated based on their genetic alterations. And this way of grouping cancer patients will give rise to what we call precision medicine. So instead of treating the same type of cancers with only one drug, with precision medicine, we can now match patients to the right drugs so that each patient has a chance to respond appropriately and have a chance to have an improved survival. This is an example of precision medicine in a type of skin cancer called melanoma. In this kind of cancer, there is a particular gene called BRAF that is often altered in this cancer. So this is a patient whereby this patient has melanoma, and you can see these nodules of cancer in the patient's body. And because this particular gene has been identified in this patient has an opportunity to receive precision medicine in the form of a BRAF inhibitor, whereby this drug specifically inhibits this particular gene. And in a matter of weeks, you can see that this patient's cancers have disappeared. And this is the same, exactly the same patient. And in a matter of weeks, the cancers just melt away because of the precision medicine given to the patient. However, our work is not done because cancer can evolve rapidly, and we need to keep understanding what are the genes that are changing that enable the cancers to come back. Nevertheless, such precision medicine has extended life for such patients, and therefore, by knowing the genes that is underlying the cancer development, we are now able to precisely create drugs in order to target these specific genes. As we begin to know what genes underlie what types of cancer, you can see that as the number of targeted drugs increase, so this graph shows the number of targeted drugs or precision medicine for different kinds of cancers. Let me just call my pointer out. You can see that as the number of targeted therapies are increasing, the survival of the patient increases. However, as I mentioned, this is not created equally for all types of cancer. For cancers such as head and neck cancer, which is a cancer that we work on, the number of targeted therapies have not improved significantly. Similarly, in parallel, the 10-year survival of these patients have not improved significantly either. One of the most common types of head and neck cancers are oral cancers. And Asians make up 65.8% of the world's oral cancer cases and 74% of the global deaths due to this cancer. So this is very much an Asian disease. As I mentioned previously, by identifying the genes that underlie the cancer development, we can begin to create and develop more effective drugs for the treatment of these cancers. So one of the critical ways of improving the development of treatment is to identify oral cancer genes so that we can now systematically develop drugs or identify the drugs that can be repurposed for this type of cancers. So how do we do this? Our human genome consists of many thousands of genes. In the lab tour later, Dr. Annie Chai will give you an insight into the CRISPR-Cas9 technology that is being used in order to identify the critical genes underlying cancer development. And this project is part funded by the Dr. Siti Hasmah Professorial Chair. This kind of work has put Malaysian scientists in the global map. Whereas before the work that we have done, the majority of the critical genes underlying oral cancer development have been done by huge labs in the Caucasian setting. With our work, we contributed to a third of the world's database on oral cancer genes, basically contributing to those that have been discovered by large institutions such as the Wellcome Trust Sanger Institute in the UK and the Broad Institute in MIT in the US. However, our work has also contributed to models for cancers that are associated with risk habits that are only seen in the Asian population, such as betel quid chewing, which is a major carcinogen for oral cancer development. So what do we do when we identify genes that cause oral cancer to develop? Way before the CRISPR-Cas9 technology, we have begun to understand oral cancer and the genomics underlying the disease. In fact, we have identified 2 critical genes in oral cancer. And in the past 10 years, we have conducted research in these genes to develop a cancer vaccine for oral cancer treatment. In the lab tour later, Dr. Lim Kui Ping will tell you on the work that we have done in order to identify these critical genes, our journey in developing the vaccine, and what we are doing currently in order to develop this further in the clinical setting. So when people come and visit us at Cancer Research Malaysia, they are usually in awe. How can a Malaysian group of scientists identify and make discoveries that can now lead to clinical trial development? And majority of them want to know how this has been done. So in the scenario for oral cancer, in the last 20 years or 20 years ago, we worked with scientists from University of Malaya and the Ministry of Health. And with the contributions of many corporations and also the support of many cancer patients, we collected tissues and developed unique cancer cell lines from these patients that you will see in the lab tour later. We use this material to understand the genomics of cancers and now develop novel therapies in the form of cancer vaccine. We are now poised to conduct clinical trials on this vaccine. We wouldn't have been able to do this without the support of cancer patients who supported us in their darkest hour, and also many international and local collaborators. I won't be able to go into many other exciting projects that we have in Cancer Research Malaysia, but I would like to highlight a few in addition to the CRISPR-Cas9 and vaccine that we are developing, and you will see during the lab tour. The 3 projects I would like to give you a sneak peek on is basically listed here. We are working on an AI-powered app to help us detect oral cancer, particularly in the remote areas such as Sabah and Sarawak. We are also conducting research to find new ways to prevent breast cancer in Asian women. In addition, we have built the largest genomic database of Asian breast cancer by working on 1,000 breast cancer patients. And Siu Chin, our clinical trials manager, will tell you more about the breast cancer work in the lab tour. Cancer Research Malaysia is the only non-profit organization in Malaysia dedicated to saving lives through impactful research that focuses on the Malaysian population and communities across Asia. We are funded entirely by grants and charity, such as international grants from the Wellcome Trust, the Newton Unku Omar, and the Global Challenges Research Fund. We would like to acknowledge our thanks to many supporters and collaborators, both locally and internationally. We have conducted our lab tours for many different individuals, such as students and corporations, and also the public. And whilst we get a lot of positive vibes and positive comments from our lab tour, the encounter with Cancer Research Malaysia is very different from different individuals. For a student, it may be an inspiration to become a scientist. For a successful corporation, it could be an opportunity to give back to society by donating to Cancer Research Malaysia. And for a cancer patient, it could mean hope, as research is the fundamental underlying medical advancements and underlying the cures for cancer. I hope for you it will be a memorable one. At this point, usually if you are at our lab physically, this is where I would ask you to put on your white lab coats and follow me into the lab. But unfortunately, this is a virtual lab tour, so I will leave you to the hands of our scientists in a virtual manner. I hope you enjoy this lab tour. Thank you very much. Back to you, Gurpreet.
Fantastic. Thank you, Prof. I would like now to invite Dr. Annie Chai, who is Cancer Research Malaysia's postdoctoral scientist. She uses the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology to find critical genes in head and neck cancer, and that provides the basis for cancer drug development. Annie has recently been awarded the Global Scholar in Training Award by the American Association of Cancer Research. And to share more about this amazing CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology, allow me now to invite Dr. Annie Chai to share her insights with us. Dr. Annie, over to you.
Hi, my name is Annie, a scientist at CRMY. Today I would like to share with you how we use gene editing technology to fight Asian cancers. If you have any questions about my talk, please leave it in the Q&A session. In Cancer Research Malaysia, one of our main research focus is on head and neck cancers. This is because more than half of the worldwide incidence and mortality happen in Asia. With the existing treatment options that include surgery, radiation therapy, and chemotherapy, we know that there are limited benefit for the patients. And therefore, there's an urgent need for us to develop new treatment options that are more effective. And this includes the targeted therapy as well as immunotherapy. And in our organization, we hope to address this challenge by harnessing the gene editing technology. But how? You might know that there are about 20,000 genes in every cell, including the cancer cells. But the next question to ask is, which of these genes are the key genes that are keeping these cancer cells alive? Let me use this Jenga block as an example. Imagine each of these Jenga blocks is just like the gene in our cells, and this Jenga tower is just like the cancer cells that keep growing. What we want to know is which block, when you remove it, can actually cause the whole tower to collapse. Or in other words, in our case, which of the gene, when deleted, can actually kill the cancer cells. This is very important because if we can find out these genes that are keeping the cancer cells alive, we'll then be able to find the right drugs to target this gene. So CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology will be able to help us answer these questions. Two scientists that have discovered this technology were recently awarded the 2020 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And in CRMY, we have successfully applied this technology into the genetic screenings on oral cancer cell lines. There are two main parts for this CRISPR-Cas9 system. One is the Cas9 enzyme that acts like a genetic scissors, where it will make a cut in the DNA molecules. And the second part is a guide RNA, which contains specific gene sequence that will help identify for the gene to be deleted by the Cas9 enzyme. In the cancer cells, we will first introduce a lot of these gene-specific guide RNA into cancer cells that carry Cas9 enzyme. And then this gene-specific guide RNA will start looking for matching gene sequences and lead the Cas9 enzyme to do the cutting and deleting the gene. When the gene is deleted, we will then inspect on its impact on the tumor cell survival and growth. If the tumor cells die when this gene is deleted, it means that this gene was essential in keeping the cancer cells alive. And if we can find drugs that could inhibit these gene functions, we'll then have the hope of killing the cancer cells. But in order to apply this gene editing technology, we will need suitable cancer models. Luckily, with the help of the patients and also the clinicians, we are able to establish these unique cancer models. So when the surgeons remove the patient's tumors, it will then be passed on to the scientists to further dissect them into single-cell suspensions and put them into specific container to grow in the lab. So next on, I'll be showing you a video where we will bring you to the lab to see how these cells are being grown.
Cancer cells are precious models that are derived from patients' tumor tissue. Outside of the human body, These cancer cells need to be maintained in 37 degrees Celsius incubator in a sterile container in the form of specially coated flasks or dishes and supplied with special nutrient solution to enable its growth. These cancer cells can't be seen by naked eyes due to its small size, so we have to monitor its growth and behavior by viewing them under the microscope. In Cancer Research Malaysia, we have successfully engineered these cancer cells with the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing system to help us identify the critical genes for head and neck cancer.
In Cancer Research Malaysia, we have established 16 oral cancer cell lines, and this made us having the largest collections of Asian oral cancer lines in the world. We are very proud to say that we have sent and shared out these cancer lines to about 20 different laboratories that are across 9 different countries. This is very important because with these precious models, we are able to study this disease together better, and cancer cell lines are also precious models for us to do drug testing. In the next video, I would like to show you how our scientists use these oral cancer lines to do drug testing.
Before a new treatment can be brought to test in human clinical trial, a comprehensive preclinical testing is essential. In Cancer Research Malaysia, we identify new drugs and compounds that can be potentially used to treat oral cancer and test them for its efficacy and toxicity using the cancer cell lines we described earlier. For instance, cancer cells are seated in the plate and treated with drugs at various dosage, after which we can then use some biochemical assay and equipment to help us assess how well is the cancer cells responding to the drug.
So I have walked you through how our scientists make use of these Asian oral cancer lines as well as the cutting-edge gene editing technology to develop drugs for head and neck cancer patients. I hope I have convinced you that we have the systematic research pipeline that would enable us to identify these important cancer genes so that we can develop targeted therapies that are more effective. In the pursuit of precision medicine, we hope that we can maximize the treatment benefits for head and neck cancer patients in Asia. I hope you will agree with me that our vision is to ensure Asians are not left out in the fight against cancer, and I hope that you will join us in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Annie. A gentle reminder to all of you, you can field your questions at any point during the presentations by clicking on the Q&A tab on the bottom of your screen. Your questions will be addressed by our panelists by text, response, or during the Q&A session later. All right, so we've looked at how cancer genes are identified. Now the question is, what's next? Here at Cancer Research Malaysia, we use our knowledge on cancer genes to develop a new cancer vaccine. And to speak about this topic, allow me now to invite our third speaker for the night, Dr. Lim Kui Peng. Dr. Lim is the head of the Cancer Immunology and Immunotherapy here at Cancer Research Malaysia. She will be sharing about the development of Malaysia's first cancer vaccine. Yes, you heard that right, Malaysia's first cancer vaccine. Dr. Lim is also the L'Oreal for Women in Science winner and has won international research grants, including the Global Challenges Research Fund from the United Kingdom. Here is Dr. Lim Kui Peng.
Hi, I'm Kui Peng. I'm going to explain to you our effort in developing cancer immunotherapy for Asian cancer. What is immunotherapy? It is a type of therapy that uses your own immune system to fight against cancer. So on the right-hand side, actually showing to you that different immune cells that are present in your immune system, we can actually use individual of them or multiple of them to fight against cancer. And it's worth to note that immune system is always present in a delicate balance between immune activation and immune suppressions. Or in a simpler term, to compare your immune system to a car system, the activation is similar to your accelerator, and the immune suppression is similar to the brake of your car. You need both accelerator and the brake, or you need both immune activation and immune suppressions to maintain the system in a good balance. However, the balance is always perturbed in cancer patients, where immune activation is always being suppressed and immune suppression is always being activated. So the aim of cancer immunotherapy is trying to reverse this phenomena, where we're trying to increase immune activation in cancer patients and reduce immune suppressions in cancer patients. There has been many different approaches being applied out there. For example, we can use cancer vaccine or adoptive cells transfer to improve immune activation. And we can use checkpoint inhibitors to actually remove the brake of your immune system. So after knowing what is cancer immunotherapy, you probably will ask, does it actually working in a real case scenario? Does it cure cancers? I'm going to give you two very renowned success stories of cancer immunotherapy. So on your left-hand side is Emily. Emily was actually diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia when she was 5 years old. 1 year later, her cancer came back and she has exhausted all other treatment options. Later on, Emily enrolled in a clinical trial that uses adoptive cells transfer to activate her immune system, and she's the first ever kid in the world to receive this type of treatment. And positively, adoptive cells transfer has successfully killed all her cancer cells, and Emily this year is actually 8 years free of cancer. Another good example is actually from President Jimmy Carter. President Carter was diagnosed with melanoma that spread to his brain when he was 91 years old. He then registered into a clinical trial that using checkpoint inhibitors to remove the brake of his immune system. And now President is cancer-free. So to conclude that, these two examples actually telling us that cancer immunotherapy actually can work for different types of cancer, and importantly, is actually efficacious for patients from different age groups. And there are many different types of immunotherapy currently available. And for example, cytokine therapy, cancer vaccine, antibody therapy, checkpoint inhibitors that received by President Jimmy Carter, adoptive cells transfer that used by Emily Whitehead, and dendritic cells vaccine. In Cancer Research Malaysia, we focus our effort in developing cancer vaccine. This mainly because cancer vaccine actually only required a vaccination under your arm that can easily be adapted into our local clinical setting at a very affordable cost. We have developed vaccine by using head and neck cancer as a model. Head and neck cancers is a cancer that very prevalent in Asia. However, you hardly see cases in other regions of the world. This mainly due to risk habits that are unique to Asian population. Head and neck cancer patients normally will experience recurrences within 2 years of diagnosis. However, these patients, a majority of them are exhausted treatment options. We positively think that if we're able to develop a vaccine to stimulate the immune responses of our cancer patients, these patients are likely to have a better cancer prognosis. In Cancer Research Malaysia, we identified 2 unique proteins in head and neck cancer patients, and these proteins are only expressed in cancer cells but not in normal cells. Using this protein, we developed a vaccine and tested in the laboratory and showed that our vaccine are successfully trained immune cells that can kill cancer cells in a petri dish. Further study also demonstrated that our vaccine successfully delayed tumor growth in animal model. When the trained immune cells are present in your body, we are positive that cancer vaccine can be used to treat and also prevent cancer recurrences. This is a summary workflow of our cancer vaccine development program. So we have discovered and developed a novel cancer vaccine. Our preclinical testing supported that our vaccine is efficacious in controlled tumor growth. In second half of 2021, we are going to launch our first ever phase 1 clinical trial to test our cancer vaccine in cancer patients to know that whether this vaccine is safe or not. I hope I have explained to you what is cancer immunotherapy. If you do have any further comments or suggestions, you're welcome to drop it in the chat box below. Then we will address to it shortly. And all our research effort in Cancer Research Malaysia is trying to make sure that Asian and Asian cancer are not left out in the fight against cancer. We hope all of you can join us to reverse cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kui Peng, for that insightful presentation. Just so all of you are informed, the development of drug or a vaccine is actually a very structured and a regulated process. For every drug that is available to patients today, the drug must actually go through a series of phases of testing. These phases of testing is what we call clinical trials. To tell us more about clinical trials, let me now invite Ms. Fong Swee Chin. Swee Chin is the Clinical Trials Manager here at Cancer Research Malaysia. She strives to enable more Malaysian cancer patients to receive the latest targeted therapies through clinical trials and brings along with her more than 10 years of scientific and clinical trials experience through her diverse involvement in French and American pharmaceutical companies. Please join me now in inviting Swee Chin.
Hi, my name is Siew Chin, and I'm the Clinical Trial Manager for Cancer Research Malaysia. Imagine you are told you have breast cancer. You may ask, how much time do I have? Will I need chemo? How will I face my family and friends? What will happen to me? Now imagine you have early breast cancer and the treatments are now so good that you have a 96% chance of survival. You may dread surgery, chemotherapy, and radiotherapy, but you have every right to be optimistic and not to fear dying of cancer. Indeed, because of advances in medical research, more and more people are surviving cancer. This is even better for breast cancer. Today, 3 in 4 already survive breast cancer, and at current pace, we hope that by 2050, at least 9 in 10 will survive the disease. Unfortunately, even today, nearly 30 to 50% of breast cancer patients will be told they have metastatic breast cancer. This means that the cancer has spread to other parts of their body and they will need treatment for the rest of their life. And unfortunately, we know very little about why breast cancer metastasizes and why others don't. We still know little about why some people who are treated are cured and others develop metastatic disease. Part of the reason is that breast cancer is a heterogeneous disease. This means that there are many types of breast cancers and we can't just look under a microscope to know what type it is. This is where genetics and genomics now come in. It is now possible to analyze the genome or DNA of cancer cells to determine what has gone wrong. So even though some cancers look the same under a microscope, they are different in the genomes, and this helps us decide how best to treat cancers. So whereas in the past, all patients with breast cancer might have been given one drug, with some patients responding, some having no response or other suffering side effects. With precision medicine, it is possible to determine which drug may work best for each patient so that each one can get an appropriate response and an opportunity for improved survival. But unfortunately, precision medicine needs genomics maps, and genomic maps are not equally distributed. Asians made up 50% of the world population, but only 10% of genomics research. So, we set out to change that, ensuring that Asians are not left out in the advances in medical research. Through a collaboration between Cancer Research Malaysia, Subang Jaya Medical Center, and the University of Cambridge, we mapped the genomes of 1,000 breast cancer patients, the largest database so far. And the results of the first 560 was published recently in Nature Communications. Because of our study and the studies in Korea and China, the proportion of Asians in genomic studies have now increased from 2% to 20%. How did we do this? Back in 2012, together with Prof. Hasmah and Prof. Datuk Dr. Yip Ching Ha, we started a collection of tissue samples. We then won the Newton Ungku Omar Award, which enabled us to sequence the genome of Malaysian breast cancer patients, and using a lot of computing power, we then went on to identify the patterns that would be associated with treatment response. While mapping the genome of Asian breast cancer is a big step for medical research, we are not stopping there. Our goal is to use the information to determine new treatment options for patients, and we have already started in this journey. Through the genomic map or more research, we now know a genetics marker called A3B is 4 times more common in Asian. And this genetic marker causes breast cancer to be surrounded by immune cells. But somehow these immune cells don't recognize that their neighbor is a cancer cell that needs to be destroyed. So we have now launched our first clinical trial to test whether reactivating the immune system in these Asian patients would improve treatment response for patients with metastatic breast cancer. And we are not stopping there. Our genomic map has shown us that there are many footprints that are left in the DNA. Our DNA is constantly attacked by the carcinogens in the food that we eat, the environment that we live in. Just like a trained eye can distinguish the footprints which are from man or bird or car, our genomics method can separate the genomic footprints and identify patients who respond to new type of treatment. This year, we will be launching our new trial testing a new treatment for patients who have a particular type of footprints in their genomes. They are just 2 examples of how we are putting Asians on the map for Asian research. In an effort to find more cures for Asian cancer, in the coming years, we aim to use this information to develop more accurate treatment options for Asian patients. We are funded entirely by charity through donations and research grant. The genomic map was possible because of corporate donors like Yayasan Saim Dabi, Yayasan Petronas, and Scientex, but importantly, many Malaysians play a part. Many people bought a pink ribbon in our campaign, or they bought the lipsticks of makeup from Estee Lauder, and this helped us raise funds to support the work that we do. We are now poised to develop more treatment options, and we need your donation and your support to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richin. We are now going to play a short 2-minute video. And in this video, you will get the chance to see what our labs look like and get a first-hand look at what our scientists do on a day-to-day basis. Also, just a reminder, feel free to shoot your questions in the question and answer box if you have any. Here is the video.
Welcome to Cancer Research Malaysia, where scientists are on a mission in finding ways to prevent, detect, diagnose, and cure cancer. Our areas of work include cancer genetics, genomics, immunology, translational biology, and clinical trials. Our experiment helps us to find what has gone wrong in cancer cells. We have developed one of the largest collections of oral cancer cell lines derived from our patients. These help us to develop and test new drugs for oral cancer. The use of specialized instruments helps us understand the patient's immune system for the development of cancer vaccines. We have established the largest breast cancer biobank in the region, and we lead on the Asian research of major breast cancer studies. Our scientists are committed to conduct impactful research here in Malaysia, so that the fight against cancer do not miss Asians, especially Malaysians. We are on a mission to reverse the Big C.
To all of you that are present here today, we hope that you've gotten a better understanding of the work that Cancer Research Malaysia does through the presentations as well as the lab video that we just shared. We would like to also take this opportunity to thank Vision Studios for working with us in developing all these videos and in providing us this virtual and immersive experience right from the comfort of our own homes. All right, we're now going to move into our Q&A session. I would like to invite all the panelists to take center stage and unmute your mics. As for the audience, what's going to happen is feel free to continue to field your question in the Q&A box. And if there's any particular question that you really want addressed, please upvote the question in order to move them up in terms of priority. In this segment, I will read the questions asked by the audience. I will then direct them to the panelists, and the subject matter experts will respond accordingly. Panelists, if you're ready, you can just hold your thumbs up just like that, and I will get things started. All right. Okay. So for the first question we have tonight, the question is asked and it says, may I know where will the clinical trial for cancer vaccine be conducted? Will the vaccine work directly in different populations, in Caucasians as opposed to Asians? So Professor Sok Ching, could you help answer this particular question?
Sure, thanks, Gurpreet, and thank you for the question. The clinical trial basically is a very structured process. There are many different phases. The first phase is usually used in order to ensure that the new drug, or in our case, the vaccine, is safe. And this will be followed by the second phase, which would be looking at efficacy, how well does the drug or the vaccine works. And then following that, there will be further phases. So in the first instance, the phase 1 trial for our vaccine is currently being planned and will be hopefully conducted by the end of this year or early next year. And the first phase will first be conducted in the UK, in the United Kingdom, in England. This is because the phase 1 unit is a very specialized unit because it's the first time the vaccine is being injected into a human being. And there is more expertise and experience in the UK. And we are going to do this in collaboration with our collaborators in University of Southampton and University of Liverpool. In addition to that, we have also secured, or our partners have secured funding in order to do these trials. It is our hope to raise funds so that these trials can be brought to Malaysia in the phase 2 setting to look to see how well the vaccine works. So we are depending on the Malaysian public and corporations in order to support us in order to bring this trial here to Malaysia.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Sok Ching. So everyone, as you have heard, we all need to fundraise, and hopefully we can bring this whole project back to Malaysia and localize it in that way. All right, the next question is for Dr. Kui Peng. Dr. Kui Peng, you mentioned that the head and neck cancer is prevalent in Malaysia due to our habits. What are these habits that cause head and neck cancer to be really prevalent in our country?
I think we can actually, head and neck cancer, one of the examples is oral cancer. So oral cancer, the main cause of oral cancer is smoking and drinking alcohol. So this is very common between the West and the Malaysia. But however, there's one very unique habit that's only Asian practice, which is chewing the bitter quid or daun sirih, which is something that's very prominent in the Asian. So studies have already reported that the bitter quids or the bitter nuts inside the sirih is actually a carcinogens that are causing oral cancer. So these are some of the risk habits that's causing oral cancer or head and neck cancer more common in the Asian setting. And another example will be consuming some of the preserved food that is a habits of local Asians that already has some study that might link to the development of nasopharyngeal cancers. So these are the habits making head and neck cancers more commonly seen in Asia, but not seen them in Caucasian countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kui Peng. I find it so interesting that different cancers are more prevalent in different areas, just based on simple things such as lifestyle. So that's really insightful. Thank you for sharing. There's a question here for Ms. Wee Chin. And the question asks, can you elaborate on clinical trials that you implemented and helped establish in Malaysia? Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Can you repeat your question again? Sorry.
Sure, no worries. Yeah. So the question is, can you elaborate a little bit more on the clinical trials that you have implemented and help establish here in Malaysia?
We have we are working in partnership with Prof. Ho Kok Fang from UMMC we have launched our first clinical trial, phase 2 clinical trial at UMMC with Professor Ho Kok Fang in the metastatic breast cancer using the immunotherapy. And later of this year, we are going to launch another trial also in metastatic breast cancer in UMMC as well. And you have heard from Dr. Lim Kwee Peng that we are also going to launch soon our DNA vaccine trial in Malaysia.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, Professor Swee Chin, for the response. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and ask it now. If not, we will move on to our next segment. Just note that if your question is not really answered here, we will also type up the answers on the back end here, and we will have answers to your questions accordingly. All right, we have one last question here. All right, let's do this one. Dr. Kwee Peng, sorry. Are these therapies effective for cancers throughout the body?
Basically, if you understand from my presentation just now, so cancer immunotherapy actually aims to boost your immune system. So every individual or every cancer patient have their own immune system that in their body. So we aim to boost the immune system. So for information, immunotherapy, for example, checkpoint immunotherapy has been approved for more than 25 solid tumors. That it already proved to work for 25 solid tumors. So we believe that cancer immunotherapy will be a therapy that specifically boosts your immune system. As long as you fit into the recruitment criteria, it will work for most of the cancer throughout your body.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kwee Peng. I think one of the things that as I learn more and more about cancers that I'm really impressed by is the whole idea of using the things that you already have within your body to fight cancer. And that is immunotherapy and just how our body works. So awesome. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll do one last question. And this question is, I'm not too sure who to direct it to. So any one of you, if you have the expertise in this area, you can answer this particular question. The question is, if cancer drugs are commercialized by Cancer Research Malaysia or from Cancer Research Malaysia, will this provide a cheaper alternative for those who couldn't afford the more expensive treatments that are available now? What are your thoughts on that?
Maybe I can take that because I was just typing the answer to that, Gurpreet. That's a very excellent question, and thank you for asking that. It's also a very difficult question to answer. At the Cancer Research Malaysia, when we think about designing the therapies or the vaccines that we are developing, cost is something we think about in addition to the efficacy. So when we were looking at the design of our vaccine, that is something really top of mind. And that is something we take into serious considerations. And we will definitely strive to ensure that the drugs that, or the research and drugs that we develop are affordable. But at this point, because it's still early stages of the development, we really can't tell how much this particular vaccine or drug will cost. Because at the end of the day, there is a lot of investment that goes into the research itself.
Great, that makes sense. Thank you, Prof. All right, that would be all for our Q&A session for now. I think the other questions that were not answered, just in the interest of time as well, will be responded to by text. So you will have your answers here shortly by our panelists as well. So thank you once again, panelists, as well as the participants, for engaging in our question and answer session tonight. If any of you would like to stay up to date in terms of our work and the latest developments here at Cancer Research Malaysia, please visit us and join our social media platforms, as well as subscribe to our newsletters. All the links that you need to actually get on board is in the chat box below. Finally, before we bring things to a close tonight, let's now watch a short video highlighting the importance of medical research in our effort to reverse cancer. Let's have a view together.
Did you know?
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 Did you know that cures for some cancers do exist?
There are over 200 different types of cancers.
And some of them are already curable.
You could say that researchers have found a way to reverse cancer.
But it didn't happen overnight.
I survived cancer.
I survived cancer.
I survived cancer.
I survived cancer because of medical research
done yesterday.
I believe
to cure more types of cancers tomorrow.
We need to do more research today.
Today.
We are Cancer Research Malaysia, a non-profit medical research organization
working to reverse cancer
in as many ways as we can.
In the world of cancer research, there isn't enough.
There really isn't enough focus on Asian genetics
and the cancers that are common here.
We are ensuring that the fight against cancer
doesn't miss Asians,
Especially Malaysians.
Like you and me.
like you and me.
But we need your support.
We need your support.
We need your support.
Because we are funded entirely by donations.
We are already working on vaccines to prevent some cancers. Our scientists are using genetics to sharpen diagnosis
and therapy.
New ways to make treatment more accessible to patients.
Projects to reuse existing drugs in new and more affordable ways.
Mobile technology to speed up screening
in remote locations.
We have started this fight.
But there's so much more we can do.
Talk to us.
And find out how science can reverse cancer for our future.
And the future of our loved ones.
And please donate to ensure we finish this fight.
We are Cancer Research Malaysia.
And we are reversing cancer through research.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that our chances of surviving cancer increase as research continues. As long as research continues, there's hope. And hope is what enables cancer patients to stay strong. It's what enables cancer patients to face any obstacle, and it's what enables cancer patients to endure through any amount of pain and any amount of trials. Hope is the anchor of the soul, and it's like the light at the end of the tunnel. Cancer Research Malaysia is a non-profit organization fully funded by donations, and we ask that you would consider linking arms with us by donating towards our fight against cancer. If you're an individual with us here tonight, we suggest that you donate 10 ringgit a month. And if you're a corporate organization, you can donate 100 ringgit a month. That's all it takes to make a difference. One day at a time, one person at a time. You know, I remember hearing this quote when I was a little younger. It says, if you want to go fast, we can go alone. But if you want to go far and really make a long-term sustainable difference, we will need to go together. Give it some thought, donate to Cancer Research Malaysia, and we are immensely grateful for and thankful for your support. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much all from us this evening. Once again, we want to say thank you for being a part of our virtual lab tour tonight in collaboration with PSWM. It was both a joy and our privilege to have all of you here with us this evening. We value and appreciate your time. If you have any questions or would like to have further conversations, feel free to call us at our hotline 012-680-8330 or email us at info@cancerresearch.my. One more time, the hotline number is 6012-680-8330 in case you didn't catch that the first time. Thank you once again. Until next time, best wishes to all of you and have a good night.